I take responsibility.
I take responsibility.
I take responsibility.
I take responsibility.
Nerdrotic.com.
Well, it looks like my family and the rich and famous of California have something in common. It looks like we're all leaving the state of California, and it looks like we all are leaving it for precisely the same reasons, yet the similarities end there. This article is both infuriating and hilarious, all at the same time. Report, rich and famous leaving Hollywood in droves over unrest that they were rooting on up until about a half an hour ago, and taxes. A new report from the Daily Mail claims that the rich and famous who make up much of Los Angeles' tax base are fleeing the city in droves over unrest, COOF-related restrictions, and, this is the important bit, municipal mismanagement that has resulted in a crime wave. Well, who votes in the mismanagers of that municipality? Possibly the rich and famous and the adult pretenders who live within the municipality, yet they are leaving. Now, remember, these are the same rich and famous and adult pretenders who love to tell us how to live our lives, fan the flames of division at award shows while they're wearing $250,000 dresses and $150,000 necklaces. The very same adult pretenders who just a couple of short months ago were telling us they wanted to take responsibility. The very same rich and famous who vote in and support the politicians of the singular party that has been running this state for decades and running it into the ground. The very same adult pretenders who wanted to defund the police while they were rooting on the rioting and the looting, and now they're leaving. A makeshift tent city made up of flapping tarpaulins and cardboard boxes surround former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger's former gym on all sides, the Daily Mail reports of downtown LA. Junkies and the homeless, many of whom are clearly mentally ill, just like the adult pretenders down in Hollywood, walk the palm-lined streets like zombies, just like the adult pretenders in Hollywood. All just 3 blocks from multi-million-dollar homes overlooking the Pacific. Now, this has been a common problem in California for quite some time. This is nothing new. Yet we're going to go over to the Daily Mail for a visual aid. Now, these articles are the same. I just don't want to stay on this website because of the ridiculous pop-ups. But here is the palm line street with the homeless encampment. And there is a poor homeless guy on the corner of what looks like Ventura Boulevard. That looks like the subway I used to go to. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's Ventura Boulevard or not. But I did live down there when I worked at Technicolor. So the rich and famous hypocritical adult pretenders have decided they've had their fun. It's gotten a little too hot in the kitchen and they are bugging out. Again, for precisely the same reasons, my family and I are leaving California altogether. We want to feel safe. We don't want to live in cities where there isn't any police and people can riot and loot with impunity. We don't want to live in cities where it's against the law to go to work, but it's perfectly okay to get up and burn down somebody's work. But that's where the similarities end, because my family and I were not rooting on the rioting and the looting, and the fake ass hypocritical adult pretenders down in Hollywood were. Yet they are still leaving. That's why it's going to be awfully hard to enjoy anything Hollywood produces from here on out, because I'm going to remember moments just like this, and I'm going to remember statements like this. Jar Jar Abrams from Bad Reboot issues statement following a weekend of riots and looting. Enough white comfort, and I'm sure Jar Jar felt very comfortable making that statement from the safety of his $6 million mansion. But maybe, just maybe, that mansion isn't safe anymore. And maybe even Brie Larson and Natalie Portman are rethinking their statements about defund the police, because I'm guessing they didn't think anyone would actually do it, but they are. And Hollywood is going to suffer from the same consequences that baseball and basketball are suffering from right now. Both sports went hard in the paint, excuse the sports reference, for BLM, the organization BLM, and both are paying the price. Ratings are down across the board. People are sick of it. They just want to enjoy their escapism. Do you think it's going to be any different for Hollywood when and if people feel comfortable enough to go to the movie theaters that are left? There might not be a billion-dollar film ever again or in the near future, and Hollywood only has themselves to blame, and it has nothing to do with the coup. It's been about their act during the coup. Stolen bicycles are piled up high on pavement, littered with broken syringes. Sounds like San Francisco. The outlet continues. TV bulletins are filled with horror stories from across the city of women being attacked during their morning jog or residents returning home to find strangers defecating in their front gardens. A moving company head told the outlet there is a mass exodus from Hollywood and that a lot of it has to do with politics, and he is not wrong. I'll tell you a little story of my move. When I was renting a U-Haul trailer up in the Bay Area, I couldn't find one. From San Francisco down to San Jose, which is called the Peninsula, all U-Haul trailers, even the open ones, whatever size we're talking about, was rented out for 3 to 4 weeks. I had to drive an hour and a half out of town, and I was lucky enough to get a trailer to get out of Dodge. There is a mass exodus, and it's not just Hollywood. It is the entire Bay Area. I think the only place where people are staying put is San Diego, and I'm not sure for how much longer. Now, San Diego, at least, is trying to resist some of the totalitarian restrictions put on the populace by Chairman Newsom, at least. And that's why I'm here temporarily while I find another state to live. And again, wherever I go, I will not vote like a Californian because I do not vote like a modern Californian. But you better believe that the rich and famous adult pretenders and the rich and famous people who help adults pretend will be bringing California and Hollywood with them to a state near you. Maybe you should put in some kind of restriction where Californians aren't allowed to vote for 10 years. I wouldn't be totally against that. Liberal politics has destroyed this city, he said. The homeless encampments are legal and there's nothing the police that are left can do. White, affluent, middle-class folk are getting out. People don't feel safe anymore. And it's not just white folks, it's middle-class folks getting out because we don't feel safe. And more importantly, we don't feel like our local politicians have our best interests at heart, not like they ever have. Like most major cities, LA has experienced mass unrest, and then they talk about the incident with Mr. Floyd. This week, LA authorities announced that the city would experience rolling blackouts as a way of saving energy during a heat wave, shocking some residents. Not really. We have been dealing with rolling blackouts for a couple of decades here in California, just proving that California has been mismanaged for decades. The city's lack of management has only made matters worse, residents told the Daily Mail. Hollywood has always been the wokest of the woke, so politicians have done nothing to stop people sleeping on the streets. It's not illegal and the weather's nice, so they keep coming, a former Hollywood publicist told the outlet. There is insufficient housing, inadequate mental health care, and the coup, and it's a perfect storm. As the Daily Wire reported recently, even comedian Joe Rogan says he is drawing up his roots in California and moving to a redder state, and that's what I am doing as well. Now, when and if my Escape from San Francisco video ever comes out, I do explain that I will not be moving to a big city. I will not be moving to a blue state or a blue town. Listen, that's not anything I ever thought I would have to say or consider, yet the reality remains the same. The cities with the biggest problems are blue cities. The reason there are problems is because there's no balance. There's no competition. There is no other party representation. Competition breeds innovation and progress. When you look at the traffic, when you look at the economic despair, when you look at the homelessness problem that has accelerated radically, and this is all the same in San Francisco, by the way. I think there are too many people here, Rogan said in his announcement. I think it's not tenable. I don't think that it's manageable. I think every mayor does a shit job of doing it because I don't think anybody could do a great job of it. I think they could. I just don't think politics really entices the right kind of people who could possibly run a city well. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I think there's certain things you're going to have to deal with when you have a population of whatever the hell LA has, like 20 million plus people. And the Bay Area has, I believe, 8 million people total. I could be off about that. Maybe it's 4. I can't remember. But it's a lot of damn people. It's a lot of people to manage. Yet there are mayors of smaller towns. The problem is the mayors don't do anything. They spend all of their time trying to get reelected. They don't care about their constituents. They just care about the giant corporations that are controlling them. And now these giant corporations and the rich and famous adult pretenders and the rich and famous people who support these corporations are bailing out of town. The same thing is happening to San Francisco. Twitter and others came into that town, drove up the rents, drove up the home prices, which was great if you owned a home until, I don't know, a pandemic hits. And now everybody gets screwed as these corporations leave and as politicians do nothing. But the real reason people are bugging out is because of the rioting and the looting. They don't feel safe. At the same time, people want to get rid of police. And I can't believe I'm defending police. It's not like I'm the biggest fan of the cops, but they are necessary. And this isn't about getting rid of cops. It's about replacing them with something worse. And these hypocrites in Hollywood who have been rooting this on while shaming people for just wanting to go to work. Douchebags like Patton Oswalt, Natalie Portman, Brie Larson, and Jar Jar Abrams all rooted on the peaceful protesting once again and let the wolf in the door, and they don't have to deal with any of the consequences. They can bug out to mansions that they own in other states whenever they want, or they can become citizens of another country like Greece with Tom Hanks. That's still pretty damn weird. Yet they don't have a thing to worry about, and they're going to bring California and Hollywood with them again to a state near you, and this is a very bad thing. California was going to open back up in mid-July. Then, of course, we had the rioting and the looting. Then a couple of weeks later, the COOF numbers started ticking back up, whether that was because people were getting tested more or because of the rioting and the looting or shenanigans. I'm not quite sure. I can tell you it wasn't people going to bars. It wasn't people going to the beach or people trying to gather at a church. And the state will never admit that. Yet they rolled back the reopening and delayed it to this very day in San Francisco and killed hundreds, maybe thousands of businesses overnight, including my wife's very successful salon, something I'm not going to forget ever. And that happened to a lot of people. And unfortunately, a lot of people can't pick up and move whenever they want. We were lucky enough to do that through a lot of hard work and determination. Yet Hollywood doesn't seem to care about the marginalized people that they are leaving in the dust as they bail out of California after having their fun. I don't think I can say this enough. Wherever my family and I go, we will not vote like Californians. And I highly recommend that my fellow Cal Exiters do the same, although I don't think they will. Now, I would love to move to Texas, but it looks like a lot of people do. And I don't want it to turn into California South. The most recent high-profile name to quit Hollywood is Tesla billionaire Elon Musk, a darling of the show business crowd. Actor Robert Downey Jr. said it was Musk who inspired his portrayal of Tony Stark, the eccentric billionaire inventor in the Iron Man movies. Musk has recently sold his compound of 4 homes in Bel Air for a combined total of $62 million and is said to be considering a move to Texas, where he is building Tesla's $1 billion new factory. And I used to work for Elon, but that is a bad sign. Although I like Elon and I think he will be good for Texas, I'm wondering about the people who are going to follow him there. Now, as far as the rich and famous and the rich and famous adult pretenders leaving Hollywood, good, stay gone. That's addition by subtraction. That is something that is already turning California in the right direction. Although I think it's too little, too late. If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. I will see you in the next video.
Nerdrotic.com. Please subscribe.